all, I just want to reintroduce the topic. We're doing the webinar 10 of 2025, and we're discussing infrastructure, LNG infrastructure, and specifically linked to gas imports and how we extend it into the internal side. Our first panel and speaker was Yuri Stein. He's a consulting partner at OTC. And then we also have Freek van Heerden. He's the CEO of OTC. And then we have Stephen Rothman, the CEO of LNG Hub. And let's just jump immediately into the questions. The first one is from Jaco Heeman. And hopefully Jaco will be able to answer you, and it was linked more at when Yuri presenting, so we'll start at Yuri, but we can pass it on. Thanks for the great overview. And what is the typical tariff structure? It could be in rand or dollar per gigajoule of a FSRU versus online terminals, and what are the typical capital requirements for a 200 petajoule per annum terminal? I can see your face, Yuri, but maybe Stephen or Freek could assist there.
Yeah, I hope you didn't specifically decide to start with the most difficult question, first of all. But this is very much like how long is a piece of string. You really have to go into the details of a specific situation before you can really determine what the relevant prices are. But what I can say in general is that, yes, it is more expensive to have an FSRU parked there next to the offloading terminal than it is to build a facility on land because of the berthing cost. Just the cost of being able to park that FSRU next to the offloading terminal is extremely high. So over a year, that adds up very quickly and significantly. And in general, the operating cost of an FSRU in terms of storage and regasification is slightly lower than what it is on land. But it's the berthing cost that kills you. The details, more exact details, Jaco, we have to do calculations specifically for that. But maybe Stephen and Freek has more information.
Stephen?
I think from the large scale, we haven't been focusing on it. We got ranges of pricing. I can give basis of, if we're looking at a smaller facility like we're looking at, you're talking around 4 petajoule, $60 million investment. You're talking about then, if you're moving to about 15 pecajoules, where we then moving through the bigger terminal, we would still be spending about $150 million over time to get to 15 to 20 pecajoules per annum. Yeah, so it's a lot cheaper than if you're looking at the 180,000 cubic meter on land facilities. But off the top of my head, I don't have costs available at the moment.
No, I did see this is quite a very curved question from Jaco. Thank you, Jaco. Dani van der Merwe asked a question, and again, it's to Yuri. It's more on the sequence that we presented. But you mentioned hydrogen, but which says, do we know of any real progress on the methane side in the maybe in the Kuga or any other of our harbors? And I think when Stephen's discussion later touched on a little bit of that, but maybe Yuri, you can start.
Yeah, there's a company called Hive Energy who plan to produce ammonia specifically for export in the Kuga development zone. I don't have exact detail on how far they've progressed with the project, but from what I understand, things are going well. They've completed their EIA, and they may actually even have started construction, but I'm not 100% certain.
Thank you, Yuri. Stephen, you've discussed obviously the Richards Bay side, and maybe you already discussed that, but if you want to add, you're welcome.
We chose Richards Bay mainly because of access to KZN Gauteng, and it gives you a broader access. And we believe the terminal that will most likely come online is the Zululand Energy Terminal. So we would focus on the downstream distribution. Coega, we have looked at projects. Difficult to get to the volumes, initial volumes, unless you've got anchor power and the Dedisa project still in transition. I do understand there is a process going ahead through, I think the group's called Tamasa and SSF, but they were planning to sign an operational agreement before the end of the year. I believe that's been postponed. So there are plans to do similar what TMVA has done in Richards Bay in Coega area as well. Saldanha, I'm not aware of any active projects. We've been looking at small scale imports through there, but again, we're looking at anchor customers to initiate those projects.
Oh, thank you. Not a specific question, but in the details, you talk specifically about anchor customers. Maybe can discuss the role of anchor customers in this hubs to make actually LNG to work or not to work. Stephen?
So on the small scale, you need to get to that 3 pecajoule level, 3-4 pecajoule level. Your margins aren't fantastically high, but you can enter the market at roughly delivered prices $16 to $17, which is then, as I said, cheaper than diesel, paraffin, also cheaper than LPG, and it gives you an entry into the market. But you need those anchors to initiate it, because you're looking at on the small scale minimum outlay level about $60 million, and without the anchor you don't get the investors online. So we've secured half our volumes, and we're looking at in the next 3 to 4 months securing the second half, and that would initiate our project. We found it difficult in Saldanha and Coega to secure the same volumes. But yeah, it's all about anchoring, and then it would initiate those projects.
Thank you. Riek, Andre Steenberg say, why is the pipeline across Northern Cape not already in construction?
Yeah, lots of things, mate. I mean, the one thing is that Namibia gas resource there on the coast is fairly new. I think that's one of the things, and people are now really focusing on that. There's a lot of sort of lobbying for that. We come back to the anchor customer thing, and I know Jaco Human and industrial gas users have been looking at roles of aggregators. You need enough signed-on users before the banks and people will give you funding. That is one of the big issues in terms of this. I mean, just an interesting fact that amazed me was the first LNG liquefaction plant in Qatar. From the time they started until they delivered the first LNG was 35 years. I mean, it's sort of unimaginable, 35 years. And a lot of that is around getting all the offtake agreements in place and all these sort of things. Getting the anchor customers in place is a big issue. I've always been thinking, and some people have been saying it, what's the role of the government in developing infrastructure? All of this is done by private guys like Stephen or other people. Even the Mozambique Ronco line was really done by Sasol, and Sasol guaranteed the offtake. That was after a long time since the gas was discovered. So that is a big problem. And the other problem I think we spoke about in the previous webinar was the whole regulatory environment. It's also quite difficult to manage all of those things. And I think we're all trying and lobbying and seeing what can be done to improve that situation. I agree with Andre. The pipe should have been in construction already. That would have been very nice.
Thank you, Riek. And I would want to continue with the regulatory and maybe discuss a little bit about the obstacles in South Africa. And maybe I'm going to phrase it like this, Stephen. How easy is it to get these approvals? Start with you, Stephen.
So, yeah, I think there's a disconnect sometimes. If I nurses executive team, for example, very positive, very willing to talk and that, but then once you go through into the process, it seems to take a lot longer than what they think it would take. So the licensing process initially took us, and we had COVID in between, so it was problematic. It took about 2 years to secure the licensing. I believe they've done a lot more to try and speed it up. As far as Transnet Ports Authority, they're the main access to our country via the ports, and they are very difficult to deal with. You deal with a lot of people sitting around a table and no one making decisions. So very frustrating. We thought we would have support by the Ports Authority. They took a year to review a lot of documents that were submitted, and I think Freek touched on it. One of the things they raised with us, and we had to do a whole study to show the difference between LPG and LNG and how much safer LNG is. All of that was money not well spent, because it went back to Transnet Port Authority, and that's why we had to then apply our mind and see how can we use structures that are already in place. So structures that are already in place are ISOs, but ISOs, as I said, we'd be delivering at about $16 to $17. If we did ship to truck, it would be about $1.20, $1.50 off that price. If we could do cryogenic pipelines, and I know all the ports are not rigged up for that, we would have further saving. And that's your supply chain. So I think sometimes there needs to be catch up on the regulators of understanding how the different supply chains work. And that's the gap at the moment. There's a space for everyone, because you're going to target certain customers for your product range and your price range. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody wants to add? Do you have some ideas around the regular environment to add?
Yeah, I see one of the questions here is why can you start an FSRU sooner than you can start constructing facilities on land? And the basic reason is you can place an order now for an FSRU, and 18 months later you can have it in position. Whereas if you want to implement something on land, you have to go through the whole EIA process, which takes you at a minimum 14 months before you can start getting finance and approvals in place, which probably takes you another year at least. So, yes, we have an excellent regulatory system, but there are loopholes where people with different objectives can delay projects significantly. And I think that's what's happening in South Africa at the moment. We have an excellent regulatory environment, but the loopholes kills off projects before they really get off the ground.
Thank you, Yuri. From Donnie van der Merwe, Freek, can you guess at which of your project list presently seem to the biggest likely impact on reality? Which was going to go first and make the impact?
So there's a lot of juggling around and people positioning themselves in a way in this whole thing, which makes it a bit difficult. I think the Richards Bay terminal, I think, was still seen as quite a good option. The Eskom hit some stumbling blocks in terms of their EIA, which would have been the power producer that takes off most of the LNG there. That was, I think, a 3 gigawatt power station in Richards Bay. but hopefully that will happen. I think something in Maputo, Matola, I think is quite possible. And as I said, the pipeline, there's a lot of lobbying now for the pipeline. So those three things I think is quite possible. The delays and the struggles to get everything through the system maybe will take longer than we think, but I think those all three are possible. That could happen. And then, of course, there's the Kinetico. There's been announcements from between Kinetico and FFS about them progressing their production. And then I think it's also known that the Motala score supply thing is also in place. So I think fairly soon we will get small-scale LNG in between LNG Hub, maybe some other people, and some local producers. I mean, we all know that Renergen is delivering LNG to various places already, even down to Cape Town. And then the other things, I think, will fall in place that way. We have to work hard to make it happen, though, I think.
Thank you, Freek, but maybe extend that. What will the virtual pipelines role be in this rollout? Because it's maybe easy to get the LNG to the onshore producer area or the harbor or whatever. But guessing these pipelines could be a bit problematic, specifically the EIA process and rolling it out. So the virtual pipelines, is that not a good filler period?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think to get LNG virtual pipelines going, that will be the first things that will happen. I think together with some ISO imports, but to get stuff from some of the domestic things plus some ISO imports in the next maybe 1 to 2 years. That's, I think, the first things that will happen, but that's small and it's very niche type supply, so it won't help us with gas cliffs and other sort of things.
And Stephen, I sort of read it in your presentation, said that that's part of your rollout is the direct virtual ISOs to clients and whatever.
Yeah, Chris, that's correct. So, but going back to what Yuri said is we started EIA due diligence June last year. We then initiated the full EIA. So due diligence was site selection and issues. We started the EIA November. We're only going to get our if we got the approval or not now in December this year. There's still an objection process. So we've already got a string of objections we had to raise or issues. For example, the dust particles in the port. How are we going to manage that? So with the trucks going in and out. So it's pretty complex getting approvals. And before we can start the virtual pipeline, you need those approvals. So anyone starting a new import and approval process, you're at least in it for 1.5 years if you don't have major objections. And then once you've got that, because they don't just give it to you on the basis of you've got customers, you get those approvals and then you start getting your licenses to deliver to customers. So yeah, it's a long process. And as I said, we've been at it for 4 years, setting up infrastructure, looking at opportunities and initiating it.
Yeah, maybe it links to a question but I have, and Yuri, you specifically mentioned the phase 1 could take up to 5 years, and now we're talking about all these delays and what. And what are we doing in the meantime? I mean, we're sort of running out of the gas from through the pipeline from Mozambique. We know all the announcements there, But what is our short-term plan? Stephen, you definitely have mentioned quite a few now, and you're running ahead. But Yuri?
Well, there are two options. You can import ISO containers with LNG, or you can develop the local markets as rapidly as humanly possible. And even so, if you do both of these, you will not get close to the volumes of gas that is required by the market. So it is critical that the projects, infrastructure projects, get started as quickly as possible. And I think you've all heard of the Richards Bay LNG bulk terminal. This is the joint venture between Vopak and Transnet Pipelines. The joint venture partners call themselves Zululand Energy Terminal. And their plan is to first of all, also do it in phases. First of all, bring in FSRU, and then later replace that with an on-land facility. And their planned starting time or commercial operating date for phase one of this project is towards the end of 2028. So they're very optimistic that things can be done. But I mean, that's still 3 years away from now. So the only thing that we can say is, yes, develop the local resources as quickly as possible, local and regional. So I include whatever can come from Botswana.
Or we say drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill.
Fred, do you have something to add there?
No, I mean, the fact that Sasol said they would supply MRG, and they made some recent announcements, that MRG will at least help a bit. We're still waiting to see what the price will be of the MRG and who can afford it, and so forth. And I think various people in this attending are sort of looking at what's happening there. All those things and the whole 180 petajoules or so that we bring in at the moment is, and we all talk about this gas cliff thing, it's really a drop in the ocean in terms of what we really require, in terms of for the country going forward. And we're focusing on this little gas cliff thing. We need to look at the whole future, as India has done in a way, and say, where are we going with it for the country in the grand scheme? That's a big, big challenge.
It was interesting from Stephen's presentation to see how you summed all of those users up, and it's clear that the import from Mozambique is small. Let's go to Charles' questions. And I think it's to Yuri. Have you looked at the cost of various terminal technologies and the various regasification technologies? Maybe Freek could also help there.
The answer there is very simple, Chris. No, we've not yet looked at the cost of different options there.
Any other Bolt?
No. I mean, this is a bit of a conceptual thing. We actually, I mean, just as a bit of background, try to get some of the people that's really looking at importing stuff involved in this webinar, but the bulk importer people are at the moment a bit reluctant to talk about their plans, I think.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
Commercial reason. Charles then also asking the capital cost of pipelines, but specifically asked for Kudu Field versus the Mozambique Rovuma pipeline. Freek, I think you've got some information on that.
Yeah, the one answer is, as I say, for that 1,200 kilometer pipeline, you need an offtake of at least 150 petajoules. And now I cannot remember. We always set $1 million per inch per kilometer or something like that. So you're talking about quite a few billion for that Namibia pipeline. I haven't now worked it up from the top, on the top of my head. Maybe Shaw knows. But it's expensive. It's billions of rands.
Oh, no, thank you for that, Ben. From H Square Engineers, and it's to you, Stephen. As domestic small-scale LNG plants begin to come online, does LNG Hub plan to support the distribution of domestically produced LNG alongside these existing import-based solutions? So are you going to use also local?
Absolutely. I believe in future there's great opportunities on the CBM and the gas resources that we can develop. So from our point of view, remember, we're focusing on the downstream distribution infrastructure at customer sites. So and as you call it, the virtual pipeline system. So the more local gas we can get, the better. So we definitely see within 3 to 5 years a mix of imported and local gas.
Thank you. There's a question from Leon. I know the water supply world environmental approvals for pipelines take very long, since many pipelines of all types across the country coordinated. And so the question is, how do we coordinate disciplines, owners, government to make sure this happens? Is the Department of Environmental actively pursuing the coordination? I don't really know who's the best to answer it, but maybe Freek?
No, I think Yuri is a better one to.
Go more to Yuri.
Yeah, just because it says Department of Environment.
Yeah.
It's not totally fair. Yeah, I mean, if you talk about pipelines, you need many approvals. You need approval to lay it across a farmer's land, for instance, and you need approvals to do river crossings, and you need your EIA approval at the end of the day. But there are just so many studies that need to be done that it takes incredibly long. And as Stephen has indicated, there can always be somebody at a very late stage in the game asking what a developer might consider to be a relatively silly question, but that silly question can delay your project by another 6 months because you have to complete it, you have to submit it, you have to make it available for comments, etc., etc.
Thank you.
There are numbers of departments, 10 or 12 or 13 departments that I think the poor developer need to coordinate between. And it's not something that is really done centrally, as far as I understand it.
But I know that that Leon, who asked the question in his earlier life, worked for the Department of Water Affairs. So hopefully he can assist us when we reach issues like this in future.
Very good.
That's a good pass, Yuri. Thank you for the panel. I think there was quite a few tough questions that have been handled very well. We've basically have answered all the questions. So thank you again, and then over back to you.
This brings us to the end of our time together. Can you believe it? Time flies when we are having fun. We're looking forward to see you next year with brand new energy, brand new ideas, but talking about many times the same things. We will go into new areas and explore the gas landscape in more depth. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for whoever is watching online. See you soon. With that, goodbye.